All right, so we are here today. It is Monday, the 3rd. It's John Wade, Drew. Oh, yeah. It's coaching session. So, Drew, what do you want to accomplish with this speech?
To really just get the point across on how valuable experience is in everyone's life, with how minimal the experience is, or with how big it is. Every little experience can impact someone's life in a big way.
All right, well, when you're ready, go ahead.
So experience has many definitions, but the main one is the knowledge or mastery of an event or subject gained through involvement or an exposure to it. Myself personally, I have plenty of negative experiences that have helped guide me in a more positive manner, from being arrested, being cornered in a Cancun nightclub because someone thought we didn't pay for drugs on time, living in hotel rooms due to problems at home when I was younger. Winston Churchill actually said, though, success is not final, failure is not fatal, and it is the courage to continue is what actually counts. So life is all about experiences, just from having one bad taste of food and never trying it again, or to losing a loved one and having it alter the rest of your decision making for the rest of your life. Daniel Kahneman, who actually spoke about experiences in a TED Talk in 2010, spoke about just experiencing yourself, but also remembering yourself to perceive happiness in your future. I personally really value experience just on making connections in my life and being able to use those for my future. My parents have always emphasized how important it is to gain connections through people, and I've had the opportunity to use my past experiences to solidify jobs and internships in my past. For example, I had an internship last year, and I was able to relate in my interview living in a fraternity house. Of course, that's a little touchy subject at the time now, but back in the day, it helped me secure a job and one internship for this past summer. The classic saying, lesson learned, comes from experience alone. Whenever you're going through anything, you not only learn from people around you, but the amount you learn just from yourself and being able to see how you can test your abilities, and just seeing how you really just go through all the motions together just to see how well you can come through with it. An example of a negative experience that turned out to be a positive thing is the Michael Vick situation back in 2007. Vick pleaded guilty and served 21 months in prison for funding and being involved with a dogfighting ring. After his release and reinstatement to the NFL, the Atlanta Falcons attempted to trade Michael Vick, but inevitably had to release him at the end of the season due to no one wanting to have him on the team at the time. But the Philadelphia Eagles ended up signing him in 2009, and at the end of that season, he was actually invited to the Pro Bowl. And if any sports fans know, it was actually an incredible season to watch with them, especially if you had him on your fantasy team. But just with that being said, I mean, there are negative experiences that can lead to negative outcomes. There are positive experiences that can lead to positive outcomes. But there's also negative experiences that can lead to positive, but there's also positive that can lead to negative. And just basically, it's all up to you and how you decide to let every experience dictate your decision-making abilities, and it's all on you. So.
Alrighty. All right, so that tops in about like 3 minutes right now. So I liked it right now. There's a few things that we should go over. But right now I get it. You're trying to get the point across. I like that. Just everything like that. I think there's a few things like the Mike Vick situation. I understand that because I love sports and everything like that. But there's some people that might not. So maybe like go back and explain who he is.
Yeah.
So it's like Mike Vick, instead of his situation, be like Michael Vick, former football player for the Atlanta Falcons. Maybe kind of give a little backstory, like why he was so important.
For sure.
I like the lessons learned thing. I like the Winston Churchill thing. Overall, I mean, that's a good starting foundation of it. But yeah, so all right, let's go into like the line by line now. So, go ahead and pull it back up, and we'll just go through everything, and then if there's some things that we'll tweak it, go into it.
I gotta put just asterisks like for the stuff I'm gonna work on.
Okay, so let's start with your opening again. And let's read that off to me, and we'll go. I'll stop you if I need to, and then we'll just we'll fix it from there.
Okay. So there are plenty of ways to define experience. The one main way to do it is just the knowledge or mastery of an event or subject gained through involvement in or exposure to it. And then as someone who has had plenty of experiences in their life, some of those being negative, like being arrested, being cornered in a Cancun nightclub because someone thought we didn't pay for drugs, then having to live in hotel rooms due to problems at home when I was younger, just really helped mold my mindset and just really put my eyes on like what I really want to do and what. So I've gotten a big opportunity to see on what I really don't want to do and what I want to be.
So do you have any like sort of opening when you're opening up, or are you just gonna like jump right into it? Because like I know that with these big TED Talks, like one of the big things is like if you just jump into it, it's just gonna be like you're gonna. I think opening with like a story, like instead of bringing up like the arrested in Cancun or arrested and getting cornered in Cancun. I think if you open it up with that, I think that's where you like build your credibility.
Okay.
So like that's why you can talk about like then something like that. So maybe start with like the negative experiences that you've had, and then jump into like a positive experience, like trying to think how you'd say it. It's like experience, or maybe just like literally just start off the story. Like one night, blah blah blah. You're doing this, and then next thing you know, you're cornered in a nightclub. Yeah. And then if you build a story up to it, then you get the audience interested for the rest of the thing. Like if you're like just jumping into it, then they'll be like, okay, this is just like another boring presentation we've been in. Yeah. But if you jump into a situation in the beginning where you can explain where your experience comes in, then it can go. Then later on you can always touch on it. So you can start off with it, and then go from like, so we did this story opening. Then you explain what experience is, and then eventually towards like the end, you can like then shift back to your experiences and how it's better to you and how you've taken it. And then, so like for example, you start with like the being arrested thing or the Cancun thing. It's just like a bad experience, and that's builds your credibility. And then towards the end, you could be like, through my experiences that I've dealt with, it's helped me gain the experience that I need to move on forward and know what to do, what not to do. And then you can go into the positive things later. So then that's where you say like, it's helped me get internships, jobs before, good knowledge, everything like that.
Yeah.
Just so like right off the beginning, it's story, you learn, build credibility, then you move in, and then from there on, people know what you're talking about. Mm-hmm. Because if you just, like I said, just jump right in, boring conversation about experience and why it matters. All right, so what's up after that? So then after experience, then what do you talk about next?
I then give like the Winston Churchill quote.
Okay.
And then I talk about just like having one bad taste of food and never trying it again, losing a loved one, just having it alter like the rest of your decision making for the rest of your life.
Right.
And then I credit Daniel Kahneman, who is like where I got the idea from, of just talking about experiences. Okay. And relate to his TED Talk back in 2010 about experiencing yourself and then remembering yourself to perceive happiness.
Okay. Read that whole paragraph with the Winston Churchill thing, because I want to see if like we can fix that up a little bit.
So to quote Winston Churchill, success is not final, failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue what counts. And life is all about experiences, from having one bad taste of food and never trying it again, to losing a loved one and having it alter the rest of your decision making for the rest of your natural born life. Daniel Kahneman actually speaks on it in his TED Talk back in 2010 about experiencing yourself, but also to remember yourself, to perceive your own happiness. And I feel like that is extremely valuable, because if you dwell on past negative experiences, then that is where you run into future problems and just it's just a domino effect of more and more bad experiences.
Okay, so so this is how I'm thinking it goes. So you start with a story, open up about something, either whatever. And then I think a good transition would be the Winston Churchill quote, because then you could be like, through that, then we went into, and then it's like when you told your story, you explain why it's bad experience or good experience, either one you want to start with. And then, but I think it would be more beneficial if you started with like a bad story, a bad experience, because then you could be like, I got arrested, and then you give that whole story, and then Winston Churchill says success, and then you get that quote, because then that feeds directly into it. That's why you can come back from those things, and then right there, then you lead into the whole experience thing. Then it kicks up even a notch, because then you have the bad food, and then losing the loved one, which really I think that'll play with everyone. I mean, everyone's lost someone, or a lot of people, good amount of people. So I think that would really help if you set it up like that, because then you go, what's the quote again?
Success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue what counts.
Right. So then right there, if you let that get to you, then you're automatically out of the game. But like if you come back from it, then you go into the story, quote, and then other experiences, the good experiences, and then you can always touch on back after that. All right, what's after Daniel Kahneman?
And then I just kind of talk about the classic saying, lesson learned comes from experience alone. Whatever you're going through with anything, you not only can learn about the people around you, but the amount that you learn about yourself is incredible. And then I go and I start touching on the Michael Vick situation. And then, like you said, I need to give like a bigger background, because I was just using like my own knowledge, just kind of assuming that people will know.
Right.
Know
I think a good amount of people will. It's just like you really got to touch it, and it helps your speech if you explain it more, because you had more time. So, all right. So I think it's a good start to like all these things. It's like good experience, everything like that. But like, what is like the big, like when you're 80% into your speech, like what is the thing that you want people to, like what's the big thing? Like where's the lesson learned in it? It's like where do you want to inspire someone to get more experience, or do you want to make sure people learn off their past experiences? Or
I think it's like shine a light on people that really don't value all the experiences that they have had in life. It's just kind of people just kind of go with emotions, and really don't sit back and like actually just soak it all in and really realize like what all they've been through and what all has helped them get to like where they are today. Because I mean, not everyone gets to go to like a 4-year university and stuff like that. So I mean, just even someone being able to sit back and become more grateful, and just like realizing what position they put themselves into, to like be in such like a small demographic at like a 4-year university, and then how they can bounce off that to like take that to the next step, like post graduation and stuff like that.
Okay, so all right, so we did the lesson learned Mike Vick situation. What's after Mike Vick?
Then after Mike Vick's, where I just talk about there's negative experiences that lead to negative outcomes, and then there's positive that leads to positive, but they can also be vice versa with each other.
All right, read that one off to me like you're giving a presentation. Okay. So how you would explain it to everyone else, because I think that it's a great idea. I just think we need to tweak it up a little bit.
Because I figured that when I was typing it sounded weird to
me. Right.
So there are negative experiences that can lead to negative outcomes, and then there are also positive experiences that can lead to positive outcomes. However, negative experiences can also lead to positive outcomes, but also positive can lead to negative. And it's all up to you and to let you decide, to let every experience and how it's going to dictate your decision-making abilities and how you can strive from there and determine your own happiness.
Okay, so that's it's pretty jumbled, because like negative, positive, 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 negative, negative, positive, blah, 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 blah. So I think which would kind of like clear it up a little bit. So for the negative, you give an experience like So and give just examples, because I think experience resonates with everyone. I just think like it's just a jumbled word mess. If you go negative, positive, everything like that, then it's just like it's just run on, and just lose. Yeah. You lose one person, and that. So with negative, you could use an example there. So like, I don't know, what would be an example of like a negative? Like you.
Like the semester I got arrested, it was the lowest GPA I've ever had.
Okay, perfect. So then you could start with that story. There it goes. So that's a story right there. So you start off by saying like there's a negative or like negative experiences influence negative experiences, and then you give your story examples like the semester that I got arrested ended up being my lowest GPA that I've ever had. Bingo, right there.
Mm-hmm.
Then that stands alone by itself, and then it's like then you go into positives. Like what's positive thing? High GPA, you got a great job, right? Yeah. So there you go. That's positive, and then GPA job, and then you can go. So then if there's like the negative, I think there just needs to be breaks in between, or you lose someone. Mm-hmm. But you don't want to like also fluff it up too much because then it's like you're adding you're taking a lot of time out of that.
Yeah, no. I agree.
So you can start off by saying like negative experiences dictate negative results, or sometimes, and then you'd be like, for example, blah 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 GPA. But at the same time, positive examples also yield positive results.
Mm-hmm.
Great GPA, good job. And then I think it's maybe add the negative, positive, negative.
Or you think if I just add like the stories with those two?
Yeah, then I think it'd be okay. Maybe like I don't know. I wouldn't talk much about the positive, negative because I mean, I also feel like it would be good just to have it in there.
I can look into it and see if I have.
Yeah.
If I can find anything, but I won't like rush anything.
Right. And that's not what you want. You don't want to just rush into something and get everything. So I guess you don't have it really written down right now, but like let's jump into the negative, and then the positive thing.
Okay.
And just kind of use an example, fluff it up, and just kind of go more in depth in it, and then we'll see how that sounds, and if it works, we'll move on. If it doesn't, we'll switch it up a little bit.
Okay.
So give like a negative, positive. That would like how experience works.
Okay. So there are negative experiences that can lead to negative outcomes. For example, my sophomore year, I was arrested for being intoxicated on campus and not being able to. I was not coherent enough to hold a conversation with a police officer that led to that, and unfortunately, after that situation, my GPA began to dwindle, and that was the lowest GPA that I've ever had at Ball State University. However, positive experiences do lead to positive outcomes. A couple semesters later, I've risen my GPA back up, and I've solidified 2 internships in the past 2 summers. So I think, and I could have easily just let that one experience my sophomore year dictate how I would ride out my entire college career, but I didn't dwell on it, and I just let myself continue to work myself back into it and to the person I am, and the results have shown.
Okay, that's good. I like that. Instead of like when you say it, however, positive experiences have positive outcomes, say also or like can also, because if you say do, then people obviously, I'm just talking layman, and like just if you're talking to someone who's never understood this before, then they'll be like, oh, if I do something, say something good happens to me, something good will happen in the future. Okay. That's not necessarily the case, like you said. Mm-hmm. So just be like, can have possible or like positive outcomes. Because if you're saying positive experience will have positive outcomes, then it's just like it's the same thing with like you said. Negative experiences have negative outcomes. They don't always. They do sometimes. Just like you just gotta like watch the words in that situation. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll be sure to point that out.
Right. Okay, so that wasn't too much time taken up. So you probably could play around with negative to positive and positive to negative.
Because then I'll also be adding time when I'm going to give more of a background, like Michael Vick,
right?
For example. And then...
All right, so let's go back to the Mike Vick thing. So, like, what will you say now in a presentation? So, if you're giving the presentation right now, what are you saying with the Mike Vick thing?
I'm just going to give like more of a breakdown of him, who he was before, and how so many like people looked up to him. He was on the cover of Madden, and he was a great role model from the outside looking in.
Right.
And then just out of nowhere, like this news got released, and then we just saw like the downfall of such a star athlete. And then I'll kind of slowly ease my way into giving the details of kind of everything I did talk about
Okay. All right. Go ahead and give that to me in a presentation. So if you're given, so you did everything else, you move into the Mike Vick situation, give it to me like you're giving the presentation.
Okay. And I won't have like the specifics, obviously.
But, right.
So Michael Vick, a prominent NFL quarterback back in the early 2000s to 2007, where he was, I'll have to look up stats and stuff,
right.
But he was on the cover of Madden, and he was one of the highest grossing jersey sales from this year. And then out of nowhere, and I'll give like the exact time, in 2007, Michael Vick was put under investigation for funding and hosting a dogfighting ring on his own property. And then later in 2007, Vick pleaded guilty and served 21 months in prison for hosting this. And then after he served his time and was released and was eventually reinstated from the NFL, the Atlanta Falcons then attempted to trade Michael Vick, but had no luck finding any teams that were interested in him. And then a year later, he ended up signing with the Philadelphia Eagles. And then after that season, he was invited back to the Pro Bowl.
Okay, so that I can also feel so is that before the negative or like
that would be before?
Okay, I think that's a perfect transition into the experiences and how they dictate outcomes. Because if you're saying, if you had this big story about Mike Vick, and then it also relates to your story at the beginning, and you could be so after you finish up the Mike Vick situation, you'd be like, negative experiences or the whatever you're gonna say, and then you could give the negative example, and then you can get the positive, and I think that would be a good. After you give both that, then you could kind of say then going into a negative positive sort of situation. Because so going back to Michael Vick, he turned a negative experience around in his life into a positive outcome, and has thus regained or had got his career back on track. And that's just an example how a negative experience works into a positive experience, or a positive outcome. And then you could also, if you don't have to use Mike Vick in that situation too. You use yourself by saying after you told your story. Oh no, because we have the story here. A second. So,
because I'm going to open up my speech with the Cancun story, which will have add more time as well from my beginning.
Okay, so
and then I can even go back to that and just say learning from that. It was just a dumbass decision on it, but it was just more of I've learned to never put myself in life-threatening situations, and just kind of going off that and
right. So we have. All right, so we can start off with Cancun, and then you're going into the Winston Churchill quote and all that stuff, the background of experience, and then there's the Michael Vick situation, right? Or no, lesson learned experiences. That's more of the background, and then there's a Michael Vick story, right?
Yeah, and then I also talk about Daniel Kahneman.
Yeah, right.
Like the bad taste of food, but also comparing it to losing a loved one.
Right. So then after that, there's Mike Vick. And then into negative experiences and outcomes. All right, and then what's after experience and outcomes?
Is that what do you think? Is that where I should talk about the Daniel Kahneman, or is that where?
No, that works for. I think the way you should be setting it up is what I'm keeping track of right now. So you start off with the intro, get everyone introduced, you build your credibility, and then you go into the background of it, explain what Winston Churchill said, TED Talks and experiences, bad food and everything like that.
Gotcha.
And then moving into Mike Vick, and you talk about him, and then move into experiences and outcomes. Because I think that way it's just it's framing it all up.
Mm-hmm.
And then what's after experiences and outcomes?
Yes, experience. I just have so much experience and outcomes on my outline.
Mm-hmm. I don't think that's a bad thing. It's just you don't want to talk about it too much because then at some point when because if you talk about these 4 things so far in detail, let's say an intro takes minute and a half, Winston Churchill's theory, everything with the background of experience, that's probably going to take 2 minutes. The Mike Vick thing, 2 minutes or so. Let's say 1:30 or whatever. And then experiences and outcomes, that'll probably take another minute. Like, you're right at that, like, 6-minute mark, where that's where, like, that's like 80% in. So, like, that's where you got to, like, that's where you want, I think you should be diving into, like, what you want people to accomplish. Or, like, what do you want people to take away from it? So, that's where you go into, like, so why is this important? Or why, like, the big picture of this idea.
Yeah, that's what I was saying earlier.
Right.
So I can go into more like just the big idea itself and saying, I was like basically like telling the audience like to value like all of your experiences. Like you can even take a second, like sit back like, after I'm done here, to really that can even be like my closing, and then just saying really sit back and like think about everything that you've ever been through and seeing what has gotten you here today, what has made you like the person you are, and if there are things that have made you a worse person or things that made you a better person, but really valuing every single experience because everything really does play a role, whether you wanted it to or not.
Right. Okay. So
yeah, I'll have to look into kind of getting like the conclusion, like the back half done.
Right. I think that, I mean, like everything else is solid. It's just like that is like, it's anything that anyone can talk about that, you know, it's just like, but what is like that big punch and like the star moment is what you want people to realize, and like something that always remembers, like what is going to be the big idea. And I think that's like your idea of like taking back, thinking about your past experiences and how that affected you. Okay, so that's good. Okay, so like half frame. All right, so let's start from the very beginning. I know this probably won't be your final draft, jump into something about where your Cancun story would come into your intro.
Okay.
So, like, I mean, it doesn't have to be, like, because you can tweak everything, but just give me something, give me a story and how it affected you. And then just go into everything else, and then I'll stop you if I need to.
So everyone celebrates Thanksgiving in a different way with their families, friends. My past Thanksgiving this past year was me partying it up in a nightclub, and that resulted in me being cornered in a basement of this nightclub. I'll change the words up a little bit, but basically being cornered by people, being threatened because they thought me and my buddy had bought cocaine off of them, and we were not paying them the specific amount of money, which it turns out we were obviously the wrong people, but we had to pay X amount of pesos to be released from the basement to be able to get on with our night, and then I kind of
then
like Thanksgiving,
right? Then it's like so good intro just be like or like one Thanksgiving or like in our Thanksgiving we celebrate like this because don't want to generalize it. Everyone's right. Yeah. Don't. I like that because then if you go into that, explain more on that because then you'd be like, but at that time. I was whatever. I don't know what you're feeling, but it's bad. And then you could be like, that's just one of the bad experiences I've had in the past.
Yeah.
And then right there, boom, you jump in, you introduce what's going on, and then move on to like the quotes and everything like that. So then the experience background. It's like, what was that? So let's say you finish it like, I'm not saying that, but like, that's just one of the bad experiences that I've had in my past.
Yeah.
And then boom, go on to right.
Winston Churchill once said, success is not final, failure is not fatal, it is the courage to continue what counts.
And then there's Daniel commented.
So then Daniel Kahneman, who had a TED Talk about experience back in 2010, speaks on experiencing yourself, but also remembering yourself to perceive happiness. And I think that plays a huge role with everyone's experience because everyone wants to be happy,
So I think with that, explaining experiences more because like if you're just gonna have those two little things, then it's gonna be like, I mean, I know everyone knows what experience is. Oh, then it's the bad food and all that stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
So mine's just kind of still on.
Okay.
Here, but yeah.
All right. So then you got that. So give me that.
Life is all about experiences, from having one bad taste of food and never trying it again, to losing a loved one and having it alter the rest of your decision making for the rest of your natural born life. It really just does go to show just how big just even small experiences can be for you, and every little thing that you encounter in your life does play some kind of role in the end result with your entire life.
Okay, and then Mike Vick.
Yep. And then Michael Vick, who was one of the most prominent and most well-known quarterbacks in the National Football League for the Atlanta Falcons in the early 2000s up till 2007. He was on the cover of Madden, was one of the highest-grossing jersey sales from 2004 to 2006. And then in 2007, Michael Vick was put under federal investigation for hosting and funding a dogfighting ring on his property. And then later in 2007, the exact date, Vick ended up pleading guilty and serving 21 months in prison for his involvement. And then in 2009, he did his time, and was eventually reinstated to the NFL, the Atlanta Falcons attempted to trade Michael Vick, and with no one answering their calls, they ended up having to release him. And then a year later, the Philadelphia Eagles decided to give him a second chance, and then at the end of that year, that is when Michael Vick ended up getting invited back to the Pro Bowl after such a dominant season. And then that really just goes to show that negative experience can turn into a positive experience.
Okay, so with the Mike Vick situation too, I'd also touch on like why Atlanta was trying to trade him, because it's like, obviously he went to jail, but like you'd be like his career was tainted, he was a tainted figure.
Yeah.
It just kind of the whole thing put a tarnish on his name, and I think also go back to whatever you're going to talk about too, because it also, that just immediately destroys your credibility, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because if you go to jail and it's just like everything like that, then it's like, can we trust him with anything else? Like, then it's just everything like that.
And especially just like with activists and everything, like human rights,
right.
Animal rights.
Right. And then that goes to show like why him signing with Philadelphia is big for his career, because it's you can always try to be traded. Even if you're not doing anything wrong in sports, but if there's something wrong and the organization knows it and trying to get rid of you for a specific reason, then it's different.
Yeah.
Any reason could, like, your salary's too big, you're a cancer in the locker room, but if you're like a convicted dog fighter or holding all that stuff, then that's way worse than anything else. And that can be used in experience, because, like I said, people might know Vic is Michael. People know what he did, but there's some people that like are just like, I've heard about it, but like nothing deep. So like, that's why you say like maybe Atlanta was trying to trade him because of everything, because his career was tainted, and he was no longer a good face for the organization. Yeah,
and then also just shows that what happened after, because some people might know him just for the dogfighting events and not know that he came back and like made the Pro Bowl, then played for the Jets and also the Steelers after that as well.
So and right there, then you go, after he made it back to the Pro Bowl, he revitalized his career and gained his reputation back. And then right there, you lead into the next, like the experience and outcomes then, because you'd be like Vic, negative experiences also have negative outcomes. Mm-hmm. And then you go into your situation too. For myself, the arrested and then bad GPA. But then after that, you say, however, there's also positive experiences that can lead to. Actually, I think. Now that I'm thinking about it, I think negative. So you should go from negative to negative positive. So
maybe start off with my arrest story and then dive into Michael Vick.
No, I'm thinking. I think you keep Vick where he is, but so instead of going negative, positive, I think you should, or positive. I think you should be like negative, because then that shows there's like light at the end of the tunnel. Because then you could be like, so instead of saying positive outcomes or positive experiences and positive outcomes, because then that's whatever. But if you're saying negative, because then you say arrested, bad GPA. However, negative experiences can also lead to positive experience or positive outcomes that can further yourself. And then you could go into whatever you're going to say there, whatever type of example you can think of. Or maybe even keep it as a linear story. So like, by getting a bad GPA or having the worst GPA or whatever, I was motivated to do better.
Okay.
And then then you could
kind of keep it all together.
Yeah. So then then you go negative, positive, and be like,
I change like my mindset, not like.
Right. Yeah. So then you got bad GPA, and then you go to, I got it up, Oh yeah. So all right, perfect. All right. That's perfect. So
I
then,
know where you're going. I like
right. So negative, 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 positive, positive,
Yeah.
positive. So you change your mindset after, or you got arrested, bad GPA. Bad GPA, change your mindset, raise your GPA, and then great GPA, great job.
Yep.
Boom, right there. Linear
Yeah,
story goes
I like
into,
that.
and it shows everything. So like negative experiences can lead to negative outcomes, such as when I was arrested during, and then give the spiel, and then you said because of it, my grades dwindled, and I ended up having the worst GPA of whatever.
Yeah.
And then by going forward, but you say, but that negative experience influenced the positive outcome. By getting that bad GPA during the time, I changed my mindset and I got everything. I got myself back together and I brought my GPA up. Boom, right there. You say that positive experience led to a positive outcome. By getting my good GPA up, or by getting my GPA up, I was able to gain a reputation back, give everything like that. And then I was able to, when I was applying for internships or jobs, everything like that, then you say, because of my great intern, or because I got my grades up, I was able to do this.
Yeah.
And then that's a linear story right there, because then it shows negative, 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 positive, positive, positive,
Yeah.
and how it
I like
works.
that a lot, actually.
So then it goes. So then after that, then that's a perfect lead into like why your experience matters and why you should learn from it. Because like because I think if you say something along the lines of negative, negative, then it's like, okay, I've had negative experiences before, and they led to negative outcomes.
Mhm.
But I've also learned from that, and then you get people thinking about it again.
Yeah.
So I think that would help a lot. So Mike Vick, blah blah blah. So I want to see how I frame this. So like negative, Michael Vick is just one example of why negative experiences can influence negative outcomes. For myself, I was arrested, blah blah blah. That ended up resulting in me getting one of my worst GPAs ever. However, through this negative experience, I had a positive outcome, as in I had, because of my bad GPA, I changed my entire mindset up, and I got my GPA back up. And through that positive outcome from a negative experience in the beginning, I was able to get my GPA up, and when I was applying for stuff like that, then I got a great job. And then that's a linear story, and then you could be like, then you go right into why like the audience should care about these things. Because then right then you're going to think, everyone's going to be like, oh, I've had one of those. And then you could be like, learn from your past experiences and then you could even like revert back to what Winston Churchill says, like success is not whatever, blah, 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 blah. And then that, I think, kind of wraps the whole thing back up into a circle, because then it's like, I mean, even if you say it early on, because if you hit like the experience outcomes at one point, and like if you do hit it around 6 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever, wherever on there, then that's already bringing the serve. That's like halfway around, or like a little bit closer to halfway around. And then if you like bring it together, and like this last sort of the outcome, or like the conclusion, and like the why it should matter, that covers up half of it. And then you could even finish with something like a quote or something like that, and then go right into there. And then that next thing you know, it's a complete circle. Because the big thing about this is it'll come full circle, and like why it matters. Like your intro should, I think, always lead into conclusion. And if you do that, then it's perfect, because your Cancun story, because then that's a bad experience.
Yeah.
And then if you're leading all the way back around, then you could even say like maybe end with like another personal story of like a positive outcome, and like why and how everything affected you, and like that's why it's coming full circle.
Gotcha.
So like why? So like the last few parts should be why it matters, why you should learn from your past experiences, give examples on that. So why it matters. And then I think this negative, the experience and outcomes is like, has an opportunity to be your star moment. Because I think talking about something so personal about being arrested, and like that's really like if that happened to me, I'd keep that to myself.
Yeah.
Like I would never talk about it. But if you talk about it, you're being vulnerable to the audience, and that's something to remember.
Yeah.
Because like if you think about it, you could think. I mean, if you're thinking of like one of the worst. I mean, I'm thinking of a presentation I saw where someone started crying, but it wasn't a bad presentation. But they were just so passionate about it.
Yeah.
They opened up. They were vulnerable to the audience, and they brought it full circle. And then that's the one thing I remember. I don't remember what the topic was. I don't remember what it was about, but I remember that moment when they were vulnerable and letting the audience know what's going on. Because then right there, they're going to sympathize with you no matter what. I mean, it's not like you killed someone. They're going to sympathize with you because it's like you're being vulnerable, you're opening yourself up to them.
Yeah.
So then you give them that whole story, and then they'll be like, oh, wow, he learned, and they get it. And so then you say why it matters. Here's your experiences. Here's what you do. You just list off, or don't list off, like, you go in what you're going to do. And then right there, the audience is like, oh, I get it now. Like, it's just opening up and it's doing whatever. So like, then the closing, it should be like, maybe give a personal example. Like, did you already have your internship or job or something like that? Or was it like, is it this summer?
I have one coming up this summer.
Okay.
I got from that stuff. Yeah.
Okay. So then maybe say, like, how all your past experiences have made you the man you are today, and like how you have learned and how I will, like, trying to think
graduating on time.
Right.
Yeah.
And like, I didn't let these bad experiences get me down. I learned from them. And maybe say like something along the past, like, or something along the lines like, you can't change the past, but you can change your future. And so I think that would be like, damn, that's great. You can't change the past, but you can change your future. And then right there, you'd be like, you revert back to your story, or not revert back to it, but just kind of like maybe like half reference it. Be like, because of everything that I've been through, I'm able to get myself back on top. I'm here today. I'm giving a speech to here today. I'm not, rotting in some cell or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm not dead in Mexico. I just give it like that, and then people will learn it. And people are like, oh yeah, he was in Mexico. He got cornered. Like, that's the very beginning. I think that would be awesome to end with, because it's like, experiences happen. They'll happen no matter what. You're going to go through everything. But if you let them dictate, or I think they're going to dictate you. But like something along the lines of like, you can either learn by your experiences or
dwell on,
and you can let them control you.
Yeah.
You're the future, like you're the.
Because I kind of had that, and I was like, it's all up to you and how you decide to let every experience you have dictate your decision making.
Right, and that's perfect, because then it's like, you can learn from them or you dwell on them, and they control you or you control them. Yeah. And then it's like, you can't control what's going to happen. You can control the controllables, but it's going to happen. You're going to go through experiences, whether they be positive, whether they be negative. It's going to happen. But if you let them control you, then you'll end up. No, don't say that. Like if you just like if they let you control, if you let them control you, then you'll don't. So no, all right, yeah. Just say what you said. It's just like, they can control you. They'll let them dictate your decision making, or you can flip it around on your head, and you're the controller of your experiences, and you are the one that's writing. You're controlling your own decision making and your own future. Yeah. And then you just wrap it up full circle right there. Boom. Oh. Well, I thought it was phenomenal. I thought we had great bass. That's perfect bass. If you do a lot of things, not everything. I just those ideas. But if you're working on that and you do everything, I think it's going to be a great speech. I know the second you started talking about it, I started thinking about my experiences, which is like the main goal is you want people to think about it. You don't want people to just sit there and be zombies that are just there to be there. You want people at least to, learn and understand something or learn something, inspire them to think about things and maybe change something. So moving forward, I would take everything that I've given you, think about it, think over it, and just kind of put pen to paper, generate some great ideas, just kind of based off this, maybe based on something else. I think this is a great framework for what we've done. I think you have a great framework already. It's just like, there's just more, you need just a little bit more punch. A little bit more organization, a little bit more punch, a little bit more substance in there. And I think it'll be great. I think you'll get everything done. I think it'll be a great speech. So.